Why did that teacher get fired from your school? Two teachers, they got caught freaking in a classroom. Female PE teacher, she got caught sniffing a girl's underwear while she was showering. Dating a 16-year-old female student who was also a PE teacher. Edit, I should clarify that he did do jail time and is on the sex offenders register. Students laughed she ate toothpaste. Turns out she was an alcoholic trying to cover her breath. One of my high school teachers was caught on to catch a predator. My math teacher was a volunteer first responder in NY. She left school to help out during 9/11 and was fired for not showing back up for 2 weeks. She had fallen off the wagon and was drinking a lot to the point where it was affecting her memory. We kept doing the same lecture on density in 6th grade science for a month, until one of my classmates decided to ask another teacher about it. From there she went to rehab. If anyone wants more context, she was our homeroom and science teacher. She was very nice, and married to our assistant principal, so she had a little bit more leeway. While she was able to remain sober for a while, she eventually passed away due to the effects of her addiction a few years after this. She never seemed like a bad teacher, but she was always stressed to the absolute maximum, always felt like she was working from behind, and generally struggling to keep up. You know, the traditional tail end of the /functioning /addict lifestyle. Affecting rather than affecting. That may have been one of the lessons I missed. This one is actually sort of rather sad. Had an amazing, but eccentric, math teacher who was incredibly involved with helping students. He made sure to always cover his bases, so there was nothing really creepy about him. The year I left high school was a senior at this time, went on to finish my GED. He was fired. Shortly after, news an article that he had killed himself with a self-inflicted gunshot. What had happened during this period of time was a student had come forward to the administration and accused him of sexual misconduct, both of them being males, and unfortunately there was no real way to prove a negative for the missing time outside of school hours, so they promptly let him go. Being a gay, black teacher in South Texas, rough. He wrote a letter basically denying all of the accusations, but had come to the grim realization that at his age, his career was effectively over, so he shot himself in the head. Later, the student who made the accusations came forward and said he had fabricated the entire event because he was failing his grades and angry. The whole event was quietly swept under the rug. Rip Mr. Ethan. You were a good person who was cut down by others' selfishness. One of the elementary school teachers at the district I went to got arrested for making his class worship him like he was a cult leader. He was totally bonkers. He didn't come to parent-teacher interview night. The next day, he was late for class and crashed his pickup into a brick sign outside the school. Cops showed up obviously, and allegedly he blew twice the legal limit. He called the principal a cunt as he was taken away. Our new band teacher was a young guy, fresh out of college. His first year teaching, and he embezzled about $1,000 from the band. Our beloved teacher, Mr. Mon, had worked there for 29 years without incident and was one of the best teachers there. His classroom was always a laugh riot. He was the best roaster and encourages us to roast him properly. He never failed to get us motivated, and a lot of us owe our career inspiration from him. He was fired because he had jokingly smacked a student on the back of his head for making a stupid comment. It was like something out of a sitcom, and all of us expected it and loved it. Yet one student, who was new at the school, was culture shocked by this. He thought it was strange but hilarious. He told his mom offhandedly, and his mom became the Karen. Never mind that the student was the teacher's godson. No physical contact was allowed, says the Karen. He was suspended with pay for 3 months pending investigation, then was let go because the Karen twisted the story and it blew up around the school. A year later, teacher won both the lawsuit against the school and libel case against the Karen, with her son being one of the key witnesses. We still keep in contact and roast him for getting rich over smacking kids around. PTA/B teacher that everyone loved. Knew he was a geek and owned it. Caught in a predator sting trying to solicit underage girls. The kicker was a spring school levy was coming up. Local police conspired with the school district to hide the charges for 3 weeks until the levy was passed. Someone substituted his class for 3 weeks. Everyone was both devastated and pissed. The district ended the school year early. Explained elasticity by pulling the bra strap of a girl. Another one for having relationship with a girl from 8th grade left parenthesis 14 yo. The principal of my elementary school got fired the first year he was hired, or took leave before he was arrested. Arrested by the FBI for credit card fraud. It was a few months after the arrest when the reason why he disappeared came out in the open. My high school of 500 students lost 5 teachers last year because they all had a relationship with the same 15Y/O girl : He was a wonderful, friendly and handsome teacher. This girl had a crush. Some bitch told the teacher about this girl. My sociology teacher in high school was fired for throwing a chalkboard eraser at a sleeping student's head. He was a great teacher, and always did this in good humor. Obviously not a great idea in retrospect, but we all knew that we could get away with sleeping in his class if we didn't mind getting an eraser upside the head if he noticed. I heard he was fired a few years after I graduated high school, and that kinda bummed me out. Probably deserving of a reprimand of some sort, but not getting fired. It's not like he was a sex offender or guitar player. He pushed some dumbass kid who hit him against a wall. One was fired for beating his wife and kids : left parenthesis. Another one, assistant principal, was fired for sex with a student on campus in her office. Another, the principal, resigned because he knew about that circumflex accent and let it happen. Edit. Here's a link to right square bracket left parenthesis https://www.npalumbi.com/2018/02/26/former-airport-high-airport-appears-bond-court. He was playing his guitar for students at my elementary school. He had been warned before, but the kids enjoyed it, so he continued to play it for them anyways. One day, the assistant principal was lurking in the hallway and wandered to his classroom. She saw him playing his guitar and fired him on the spot. A whole lot of students were crying that day because he was an amazing guy. Edit. More information. This took place in a small, rural town in Georgia back in the early 2000s. He wasn't. My AP Chem teacher had an affair with the principal. Principal got fired too. I felt bad for her. They didn't. I heard a rumor that my favorite teacher from 9th grade got fired when I was in 10th grade because he left his class unattended. She was always drunk and drinking during class. She would leave us to cry in the bathroom. This one you can find in the news. One was such an unlikable teacher they were asked to retire. One was watching porn in class. One sent someone else's dog pics to a student's mom. One robbed the bank. High school gym teacher, apparently he showed up to a hotel room expecting to bang a 13 years old but got busted by the cops instead. He straight up didn't show up to work one Monday, didn't call in to arrange a sub or anything. He ghosted the school for a whole week and then tried to come in the following Monday like nothing happened. We also had a 5th grade teacher overdose on meth, but I honestly don't know if she got fired or resigned. It didn't happen at school. He got arrested driving through Nevada over the summer with 5 pounds of weed in his car that he bought in California. He had no intention on telling the district, and we only found out because a news reporter from the town he was arrested in contacted our superintendent for a quote on the matter. He was let go immediately. Edit. Here is a link to the article right square bracket left parenthesis https://www.syracuse.com/news/2011/03/liverpool_my_school_teacher.html, and I've corrected the weight of the weed that he was transporting. Apparently this story has been retold so many times that the amount of weed increased substantially with every retelling. He was caught trying to solicit a child prostitute during a sex trafficking sting. He was a social studies teacher at my middle school, and the arrest made local news when I was a freshman. Really shocked the district. Edit. Because a lot of people are asking for details. This happened in San Antonio, Texas in about 2013. Company worker teacher got fired 2 weeks in the new semester, when instead of uploading a video related to his subject, he instead accidentally continued a previously paused hardcore lesbian scene on the big interactive screen. The computer he was using was slow and shitty too, so he couldn't quickly exit the video. It went on for a good 30 seconds before someone pulled the plug on the screen around the same time he locked the laptop about 30 feet across the class. I still think about this all the time. The assistant principal that kicked me out school for smoking weed got arrested for picking up a prostitute, then fired. Oh boy, where to start? Elementary school nurse was fired for taking the kids. He was legally blind and ended up stabbing and killing his wife. Dating a 16-year-old student. He was the band teacher. He also had a wife and kid. He went to jail and is now a registered sex offender. Sending nudes to a student. She embezzled thousands of dollars from various club funds. There were also rumors of her sleeping with students, but the administration never bothered to look into that. Had a history teacher get fired for going off syllabus and spending time on the pre-Judaic flood stories. One of maybe 2 reasons I'm obsessed with Mesopotamian/Anatolian/Egyptian history now. TW, suicide. Our principal was escorted out by 2 police. Come to find out it was because he was caught committing fraud. He would assign students to classes without telling them to make it seem there were more kids in lab. The art teacher at my middle school was known to be very suspicious. In threesome with 2 guys in her English class and doing blow with a bunch of students. The one that for fired was a substitute teacher and coach of a girls' team for grade 7 to 9. He seemed a bit creepy, and we joked that he liked coaching the girls and teaching PE so he could watch the girls run around in their shorts. Turns out that wasn't far from the truth. His full-time job was in the medical field, where he was caught doing inappropriate things to female patients, some of whom being kids he coached and taught. And he had 2 sons in that school. This one didn't get fired, but she was at the point where she had a few classes taken from her, and if she did anything wrong, she would have been gone. Why? Well, she didn't know the subject she was teaching, and would make stuff up rather than admitting she didn't know the answer. She was always mad, and we called her Popsicle because she acted like she had to stick up her ass. But the biggest thing was that she failed 2 grade 11 classes. The whole class, because apparently not one person, including the smartest people in the school, passed any tests. Middle school PE teacher walked into the girls' wardrobe and asked if he could watch one of them change their tampon as a /joke/. Nonst on some kid playing Pokemon Go outside school also had child porn on laptop. Having sex with a student, more like 10, his wife wasn't happy to find out about that. PB. Teachers at my high school got fired on a pretty regular basis. Principal was a narcissist, but here's one of the rare ones we actually heard about. The school went into lockdown because someone was seen hopping over the fence onto campus at the start of the school day. Freshman geography teacher locked his door, didn't control his class, wouldn't let one of the students back in, and jumped at every sound he heard. For comparison, the sub in senior literature next door didn't have a key to lock the door, but grabbed the handle, got on the floor, and planted both his feet on the frame so that the door couldn't be opened. I think the dude was a linebacker for football, too. Him and his college buddies invited an underage student over to his house for drinks. They then proceeded to drug and rape her. He still kept his job for a while after the fact because the girl was terrified and didn't know what to do, so she told her friends, which then made the story spread like wildfire, and all the people in a position to do something about it thought it was just a prank. Well, turns out it wasn't a prank. He got sent to prison. Considering it was a drugging and gang rape of a minor, he's probably out by now. I guarantee you he left the state because everyone and their angry redneck dad with a 12-gauge knew about what he did. And do I got a story for this one? I apologize for the length, but it's worth the read. So I got a job as a PE teacher/coach at a K-12 school. It was the beginning of my 2nd year and rumors were going around about a teacher having a relationship with a student. I just thought it was a rumor and moved on. A few days later we have a cross-country meet and I have to get to the school at 5:30 a.m. to leave for the meet. I noticed another car in the parking lot, which was gate closed, and no one around. This has never happened, so I called one of the other coaches and he was not sure and found it strange. I don't think much of it and go about my day. We get back from the meet around noon and the car is still there. Turns out it is one of the high school teacher's car that was left from the day before. I thought it was car troubles and decided to not think much of it. I arrived back to school on Monday and boy howdy did she eyes hit fan. The car was left at over the weekend not because of car troubles but much Much worse reasons. The car was left over the entire 48-hour weekend because the teacher who owned the car had a mental breakdown in class, couldn't control it, and had his sister, who also worked at the school, take him home. He had a breakdown because his GF broke up with him. His GF was his student. So once the story was confirmed, the police came and searched his classroom. His classroom had empty liquor bottles in the desk and his room was a mess. The teacher was fired and that was the last I heard of him. However, the story doesn't end there, folks. Because the sister of the convicted teacher was behind everything, helped them arrange dates, meet UPS, and covered for him to keep the story hidden. She was fired a week later. I left the education world after that semester and never looked back. My AP English teacher got high on painkillers, broke into some E1M. Wasn't. He didn't get fired, he got forced into retirement, but it took multiple incidents over 5 years. Here are the biggest ones chronologically. 1. He bullied kids in front of the class repeatedly and was reported. He would rant about how kid X was never going to get anywhere in life and how kid Y would be an alcoholic in 10 years. While teaching a class. 2. He kept a spray bottle filled with water, and if he thought you weren't paying attention or you were too loud or too fidgety, or too, insert adjective here, he would spray you with it. After getting in trouble for ruining Skip's brand new MacBook, water in the keyboard, he doubled down and added some foul-smelling something so that if you got sprayed you would stink all day. 3. While teaching, went off on a tangent about how girls who got raped were probably dressing slutty and therefore deserved it, in class, to a group of underage girls and boys. 4. His apology for number 4 was basically, I'm sorry you feel offended, but the girls, yes, he used the word girls, not women, who dress like that are super provocative and men just can't control themselves. Then the school board made him read a pre-written and legally approved script out to the class. 5. Dress-coded girls in a really creepy way. I would be teaching a lesson, constantly doing that doggy looking at the girl's chest, then back to the lesson, then back to the chest thing, and then would call the girl out in front of the class, remarking on extreme specifics about what he could see and why it was provocative. Super weird. He was asked by the school to stop dress coding several times. 6. One time a student called him out on being an unfair grader and showing preferential treatment, and he went on a rant about how he has mental health issues and his parents were alcoholics, so if he killed himself it would be the student's fault. He was forced into retirement after a long 5-year battle in 2019. He was a high school chemistry teacher. This was in Canada. His son threw a party in 2018 and the whole school found out, showed up, and trashed his house. Do I condone it? No. But also, he kinda deserved it. Apparently he called the girl a whore or something similar, and they were in 7th grade. They seemed like a cool science teacher before though. Janitor filmed his teenage daughters in the shower. This was 25 years ago, so it was an elaborate rig using cameras that had film cassette tapes. Premeditated, creepy she eyes. We looked through that house when it came on the market for sale and it had an awful feel, only released later. Why? She wasn't enforcing detention, letting students leave early, or just signing their name for them. She was also the mom of a student. They fired her and all the students that regularly received detention rioted, jumping on cars, flipping trash cans. They set one on fire and pulled the fire alarm 7 times in a day. I forget how it was quelled, but it only lasted a day. They found out he was gay. He was a chaperone for the 8th grade East Coast trip, and parents of boys got all up in arms that he had access to their hotel rooms. No student has ever accused him of anything inappropriate. Coach/history teacher, of course. First off, some of the early warning signs we all should have noticed first. He showed up the first day of school and told us he was a youth minister and that we would always see him in long sleeves and pants because he had tattoos and he regrets them. That he didn't want to accidentally encourage any of us to get some too. 2 weeks later he is in shorts and polo shirts showing off multiple Looney Tunes tattoos. He taught 6th grade US history out of a textbook, word for word. We did multiple chapters a day and were expected to do every assignment listed for each chapter. This averaged about 3 hours of work a day. In 6th grade, he was the only class that year to regularly assign homework, and he received multiple parent complaints about the workload. He would often leave the class alone to read chapters. He would then go out to the hall or parking lot to make out with his girlfriend who would arrive randomly. He was the middle school track coach and thus spent a lot of time in and around the middle school locker rooms. Too much time. He took photos of the kids running for the yearbook. These pictures eventually made it onto his work computer desktop, then his phone background. Only the girls though. But the final straw that got us out of his care. He showed up to a middle school basketball game drunk and tried to yell at the ref. He was fired that day and not allowed back on campus. She fricked the 12-year-old, went to jail, fricked him again, went to jail again, and then married him when he turned 18. Child porn. Staring at the girls' ashes while they were doing squats. One PE teacher got called out for having erections while watching the girls play sports. Got confronted by the principal, to whom he told it wasn't true, that it just seemed like he had erections because he has a really big dog. The principal, male, was not amused. The PE teacher was fired that same week. 2 teachers, actually, for almost the same crime. At first I thought they were for the same thing, but apparently not. First guy, music teacher. Fired before I had his clash, thankfully. Was selling sex toys, condoms, etc. to high school students. Was fired and arrested. Second teacher. Had all of his clashes. He had a history of being really creepy. Filmed girls while they worked out / stretched. Had a Mashite jug and lotion next to his computer and was often caught by students watching / looking at porn. He one time told us a story, unprompted, about how his brother called people about being suicidal, and when they found him he had killed his wife, then himself. He was fired after one kid spoke up about actually seeing porn on his computer. He was fired for that, and only that. Was never arrested, certainly should have been. He was a bully, and a creep, however low-key he was about it. My football coach bullied the gay kid on the team enough that it had a big enough impact on him that the kid killed himself. The coach was mentioned in the note and the teacher / coach resigned. The coach was a total asshole to people he didn't like, including me and a few others on the team. Since he wasn't allowed to kick kids off the team, he would pretty much bully the kids to quit. Teaching us about evolution. I realize that sounds ridiculous and made up, but it seriously happened in my small Texas school. Hooked up with 2 teen girls at the school and smoked weed at his house with them. There was a tornado in our area. The college I was in was leasing a multi-floor office building. Alarms were sounding outside, and people were retreating into the stairwells for safety. Teacher blew it off and said people were just making it up to be funny. Learned when I got home that the tornado was *** right outside the window I was sitting next to. ***. Reported him to the faculty. So did others. He was gone the following week. Had child porn on his computer. My brother was his favorite student. A teacher gave alcohol to some students in a field trip out of the country. They students were 16 to 17 and they asked if they could order beer. Later they took photos and it was all over Facebook. This was years after I graduated, but rumors spread quickly. Strictest teacher in the history of the school left his laptop up with dominatrix porn. Kindergarten teacher did throws into kids' arms with her long, sharp nails by basically holding their arms real tightly. She did this if she caught them misbehaving during recess. It happened to me when I was running when I shouldn't have. I think this was nearly 40 years ago. I showed the principal my arm as he was walking out one day and she was fired on the spot. I think I was 4 at the time and didn't realize exactly what I did at the time. Crazy she eyes. She, teacher, was helping cover up an affair between a female student and a male baseball coach. She also was the proxy between them. For example, the coach bought the girl a necklace, so he gave it to the teacher who in turn gave it to the student. Everything blew up when the student's parents looked through her phone and found a bunch of inappropriate texts. The teacher did not serve any time. She lost her license though. Not fired because, he had enough of that one asshole kid who would disrupt class and talk she eyes. One time he slapped / punched him in the side of the head while he was still in his seat. Knocked him and his desk over. The kid was fat and he wore tracksuits to class and thought he was the she eyes. But he wasn't and had it coming. Everyone gave the teacher props, but he knew it was over and just walked out. Sleeping with students, sending nudes on school devices, being drunk on the job. It was a wild year. Oh, how can I forget the parent who left her husband for the lady gym teacher, and subsequently got the gym teacher fired. Lots of stories here. Basically she was in a porn magazine, at least one. Rumor was multiple and maybe even a few tapes. This was right at the start of the internet, so acquiring things wasn't. I replaced one teacher. She was young and pretty and was photographed kissing one of the seniors in the parking lot. He got a female student pregnant at the same time his wife was pregnant. His wife was and still is a gym teacher at the school. They found out his diploma was a forgery. He never attended or graduated from any college to be able to teach. No one was surprised because he didn't. Showed R-rated movies to middle schoolers. Shame, I thought he was a great teacher. She stepped out of class to talk to the principal and a student was going to hide her thermos. They opened the lid to smell it. It was vodka. Band teacher didn't. Said the N-word on camera. It made the news and everything. Ran around one of the chem labs shirtless and had a trash can on his head, right before classes were going to start. The police checked his house and found a meth lab that apparently wasn't not his, it belonged to his /roommate/. This was a few years before Breaking Bad ever came out. Soccer coach got too handsy with some of the female players. English teacher left his wife for one of his students. One teacher had sex with a student during a marching band trip. Oh, and my home ec teacher got busted for selling meth. In a span of 3 years, all in my hometown of 3,300 people. Gym teacher picked on kids incessantly for years. Finally, during a clash outside, an adult witnessed the bullying. The bullied kid. The dude was so bad at teaching even the negligent admin took notice. Okay, so this is a serious one. A really poor dude, 16M, that walked to school with his mom every morning on the highway saw his mother being run over by a truck and she died in his arms. 5M from the off-ramp into the school street. A few weeks later he seen EFAL, English First Additional Language, and the teacher, real brick, seen him take pics of some girls, started talking shit about the kid because he wasn't paying attention in class. Now listen, this kid is a frickin' boost 16Y/O. He asked the teacher politely to stop. The teacher continued and the kid broke down, thinking about his mother in all of the she-eyes off. The teacher yells at him to go cry at his mother's grave and spare the classroom his she-eyes. The kid leaps over his table and starts beating the she-eyes out of the teacher. Saw it from the window, quite entertained I must say. It made national news. South Africa Berglam kid attacks teacher. The kid was expelled, investigation launched. Teacher was subsequently laid off because the whole thing was recorded by the clash cameras. Hats off to you kid whose name I forgot, I enjoyed watching that beat down. There were like 3 computers and the teacher's personal computer in most classrooms. One day they found child porn on the teacher's computer and was fired. It wasn't. He was the music teacher ... and a *** pedophile !! Unfortunately for him, he didn't think the girls he /practiced with in the practice room would report to the principal. When that happened, he ran like a dog with a tail between its legs. Mr. Nelson, if you're seeing this ... rot in hell. This was my elementary school principal. She got fired from her old school because her and a teacher were caught hooking up in the parking lot by another staff member. The rumor spread like wildfire because somehow the district let her /keep /her job. All they did was make her switch the schools in which she's the principal for. My high school had 2 notorious firings. One was a photo class teacher dating a student. The other was the PE teacher was part of a cocaine trafficking operation. Our elementary school just got a new principal, frig you Mr. Tepner, who was on some freaking power trip or some she-eyes and he fired all the newer teachers at my school including my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Defloff, if now. I went to a pretty conservative Catholic school. In 7th grade we had a music teacher that pretty much only taught us lyrics to Bob Dylan songs and other 60s hippie music. He was gone the next year. I had a choir teacher in 7th grade that would stare down girls' shirts and compliment their cleavage and he eventually got fired for slipping a student a note saying how attractive she looked on that particular day. The track teacher was supposedly having intercourse with multiple female students. Got fired. The man lad then used his connections and became part of the board of trustees for that same school that fired him. In grade 10 or 11, we had an English teacher get fired for showing an /inappropriate /movie. The movie, I think it was Ones Were Warriors, was approved by the school. The teacher sent a note home to all the parents for his class asking permission and detailing what was in the movie: violence, drug use, sexual assault, and why he had chosen it. One girl, whose parents had signed the permission slip and decided to watch the movie with the class, the teacher asked if anyone would like to leave. Got about halfway through the movie before leaving in hysterics and complaining to the office that the teacher had behaved inappropriately by showing the movie to a class of 15-16 years olds. Poor guy did everything right, got approved and parental permission, and still got fired. Another staff member, F-20S, office assistant not a teacher, was fired for going on schoolies with some kids from our graduating class and hooking up with one of the boys, 17M. B. When police entered the office of Mitchman Middle School Principal John Asera to arrest him for allegedly selling crystal methamphetamine, they found the 50-year-old educator naked and watching gay pornography with sex toys nearby. Sources say Bethlehem Paul had sex with the twins, was married to the company gym teacher. He was accused and caught on camera grabbing female high school students' butts in the crowded hallways. He had numerous accusations brought against him for cornering female students when they were alone, giving special treatment to females in his class, making sexual comments in class, and even following a student home one day in his car. I was one of the students who had to report and give a written account of my interactions with him. He was fired after the police got involved, thank frick. Boarded up the door during a practice lockdown she thought was real and gave a lot of the kids' classroom items to use as weapons. She even taught me to go for the neck with the scissors she gave me and my friend. Getting caught fricking another married teacher in the custodial closet by a middle school student. A tech teacher of mine hit a girl's arse with a ruler as a bee. 97% of this thread is about to be teachers fricking students. Her credentials were expired, she was trash at teaching, and was racist. He held a kid upside down by the legs. He was my 5th grade teacher, he wore short shorts, my friends say they could see his bits but I didn't. 2 child molesters and 1 possession of child porn. Got to love Christian schools. Rubbing his boner on my friend. From losing our exams and giving us 0% on the final notes. A kid broke a thermometer in class, 6th grade. His teacher was amazing, passionate, careful, and great with kids. He was fired instantly because a little bit of mercury got on the floor. He worked at the school well over 10 years I think. I saw the poor guy 8-ish years later in really bad shape. Told me he was struggling with alcoholism, depression, etc. Kept throwing sharpened pencils at his students. Teacher was found sitting in his car outside his apartment, naked, and gabbling to himself. When a neighbor saw him sitting in his car naked, the cops were called. The cops arrived, escorted the teacher inside his apartment to get him some clothes, and found his girlfriend dead. Teacher beat her to death. Apparently committing murder will get your teaching certificate revoked. 1. 11th grade history teacher and as fired for a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old student. 2. Same school, 11th grade English teacher fired for repeated threats of physical violence to students. Lots of intimidation. Middle school principal, for stealing 2 pairs of dress pants and a shirt from a department store. For being such a huge cunt, multiple students from various classes complained about her. Also one of my high school swim coaches was a teacher at a juvenile hall and she got fired from coaching because she shat in a 5-gallon bucket in the back of our moving bus while we were driving to the aquatics center. P.E. teacher got caught molesting a 7th grader. Apparently he had been doing it regularly and told the kid he would kill him if he told anyone. The whole thing was hushed up to protect the school. All they did was fire the guy. History teacher in 6th grade was fired for molesting and sleeping with dozens of kids that we know of. He was cool, wealthy, nice, traveled a lot, and had a fascination with Egypt and went every year. He was genuinely the best teacher ever too, both in actual education and making things fun and interesting for students. News came out that he was missing with a warrant and it turns out he killed himself since he was figured out. He was so loved that when everyone found out both what he did and that he died, the community and friends of mine all were sad he passed and still celebrated his work as an educator first, before shaming him or acknowledging he was a pedo. There were gatherings at parks to celebrate him and cook out. And honestly, even I was at least a little conflicted. He changed the course of my life and made me successful. Looking back, I can see a lot of signs or things he did that were abnormal that pointed to it, that without that knowledge you wouldn't have really guessed it. Not fired from what I heard, she willingly stepped down. Apparently she had a video on her work laptop of her stripping. Didn't take long for a student to get a hold of it and sending it via texts. What was stupid was the kid didn't get any punishment for going on a teacher's laptop without her consent, which is the real crime. HR fricked up her visa and she had to go back to her country of origin. 6th grade, he snapped at some kid and put him on his lap and just started hooping his ass with a belt. Told him he was getting something he's always needed. To be fair, the kid was an asshole. 8th grade math teacher lost it on some kid, grabbed him by the back of the neck and threw him out of the classroom. Don't know what happened to him. Halfway through the school year, my high school manufacturing teacher was talking badly about his wife. Apparently he was kicked out the house and staying at a friend. Taught my class the wrong math level lesson plan. One of my friends once told me that his primary school teacher murdered his wife and the details of the case were gruesome. The teacher cut her up into pieces and tried to hide the evidence but was caught. He was sleeping with a girl in my grade. Funny enough, earlier that year some kids dug up reports from years ago where he was reprimanded for playing chicken while driving a girl on the school's sports team to a match. French teacher swearing at the student. Fricked the student when he was her senior project advisor. 9 months later she got graded and it was a B. I had a teacher that recorded videos of a disabled student peeing, 60-year-old boy. He stuck a camera to the bottom of the sink with silly putty. Was only caught cause the camera fell on the ground. Funny thing was, he was my cross-country coach and used to make all the girls circle around him, lay down, and open our legs. He called it the bee. My 6th grade teacher had a reputation of being creepy with girls. The first day of school he made me sit right in front of him while he was on his tall desk. He would be on his phone constantly, make comments about me and how it had a math teacher tell a student to kill himself. Had 2 instances. First, 4th grade, social studies. Mr. Q weird guy. Always had a spit bubble when he talked. Id. Reddit loves to she eyes on teachers. B. I know of 4. 1. He was making the geography teacher uncomfortable with his unwanted sexual advances. 2. She was left a Ziploc bag of narcotics locked in her desk. Students stole the bag. 3. She let a 15-year-old student borrow her car to run errands while serving as a teacher. Rumor has it that a few years ago, the guidance counselor for the intermediate school, grades 5 and 6, was managing the financials for a brother and sister in the school since they were foster kids. Only, by managing the financials, she was actually embezzling the alimony to her own pockets. Her husband is a teacher at the middle school that was honestly one of my favorite teachers ever. The rumor also includes the note that the husband didn't know about this. I was friends with the husband on Facebook and he barely posts anything since the story started spreading. Edit. Actually, out of curiosity, I looked up the story. Really sad. I got some of the details wrong above, because, you know how rumors spread. Article here. Right square bracket left parenthesis https://www.tollabode.com/locals/course/2018/11/15/former-teacher-theft/story/20,181,115,147. She was giving B. This was a new teacher at our prep school. He encouraged us to deface school property by telling us to rip out the introduction in our poetry textbooks. He then taught us to think for ourselves and seize the day because life is short. As a direct consequence of this, one of the students in our class committed suicide. My 8th grade social studies teacher. Our teacher always seemed like a weird kinda guy. Years after I left school, there was a huge news story about how he'd been sleeping with 2 16-year-old twin sisters that were in his class. He was about 50. Apparently they'd all go camping and one would watch as he lay with the other, and if they weren't camping then he'd take them to his elderly mother's house where the loft was converted into a room. Eventually one of the sisters wrote a letter to the head teacher of the school because she had become uncomfortable with the whole thing. He lost his job, his wife, his house and contact with his adult children. He tried and failed to commit suicide before appearing in court, I think, and was eventually put on the sex offenders register. As far as I'm aware, the two sisters are now married to a much older gentleman and seem to be doing okay. Child porn on his school computer, and they found evidence that he had been meeting up with and having sex with a young boy. Beyond disgusted, and he admitted to the police he was attracted to 13 to 17-year-old boys during interrogation. This was an all-boys high school. He took a she-eyes in the middle of the hallway after school. Didn't. He got caught spying on and recording the girls' volleyball team in the locker room. He is in jail now. Took PCP, stole a car, crashed that car, jumped on top of other cars and caused a pile-up. All while butt naked except for his socks. He used to always try to get me to join the wrestling team and used to call everybody Grasshopper. He was a weird dude. Link to news story right square bracket left parenthesis https://www.dailymail.company.uk/news/article-2010024/the-high-fan-high-fan-fall-high-fan-arrow-hyphen-naked-hyphen-carjacker-high-fan Because he was feeling the girls up. It was year 8 and 9, and I noticed whenever there were girls grouped together in class he would also favor us and slide his hands up and down our arms. The very first time he did it to me I told him to get lost and got in trouble. So that night when I showed the slip to my mom and explained what happened, she went into the school like a bat out of hell. Turns out I was the only girl who spoke up that he was being inappropriate, and some girls came forward after that eventually and told the principal that he would get them in the room after class or during free periods and touch them in a way that made them feel uncomfortable. Teacher at my high school got fired a year before he earned his retirement for allegedly pushing a known troublemaker down the steps. Another co-worker was the AL facilitator and also the trap shoot coach. So he worked with emotionally troubled students and was the only teacher allowed to have guns on campus and with students. Anyway, he got arrested for threatening his wife with a gun. Wife was an administrator for another district. Science teacher and my batting coach had a relationship with a student. After I graduated, he had to be 50. Not my teacher, but a teacher at my school got fired for being trans. The school board made up other reasons, but it was a load of she-eyes. She got really frustrated with this kid and put him in the closet with his whole desk and shut the door as well. Turns out the kid has ADHD. Went to a Christian school. Teacher got fired just for having a sticker on a moped saying he. Chemistry teacher's son recorded porn over a science video he was playing for the class. The Big Bang turned into a Big Bang. We had this teacher, he was the teacher he was a funny great guy, the best English history teacher you could ever ask for. So, one day during a graduation party, this was a few years ago, he went into the grad party, and the students started drinking, and so did he. Apparently he got wasted, said a bunch of stuff to the principal, and they just fired him after that incident. Selling candy bars / bags of chips / drinks to his students. Also was the head soccer coach and pocketed the fundraiser money. He actually ended up getting arrested, so there might be more to the story. Everyone kept writing back / free. One of the reasons was that he accidentally ordered a ton of clay to the school. Literally a ton. Someone found her Twitter account and it wasn't. Because he went to prison for freaking his stepdaughter. Mr. Barrett, she was 13, you piece of she-eyes. It doesn't matter if she came onto you or not. Choir teacher was not only fired but also arrested for having a sexual relationship with a 6th grader, 11 over 12 years old. Pastor / religion teacher in grade school got really into cocaine and borrowed money from a bunch of people. He came out to the congregation and resigned. The funny thing is he was the mosey down-to-earth pastor we had, and I really liked him as a teacher. He had an interesting way of looking at religion as a way of living, not worshipping a sky god. Probably part of why I'm an atheist. Anyways, he was a really good dude who happened to really like blow. He watched porn while having an online test to students. It was clearly seen from the mirror behind him a black guy was pounding hard low. One of the pre-algebra / algebra 1 teachers was fired and arrested for having relations with a student. This was middle school, mind you. He threw a Bible and a stapler at my classmate's head. Oh, Mr. Growl. Well, he couldn't. My school had a teacher that was going through a rough divorce with another teacher in the school, so one day he locked his students outside of the classroom. Principal came along wondering why they were all outside. They didn't. The school chaplain at my Anglican high school was found in possession of child porn. None of the children in the photos were students. That one had a pretty obvious outcome. Food technology teacher wrote nicknames for students next to their real names to help her remember on. There was a 4th grade teacher at my school who made a kid cry in class. The parents pulled him out of the school and sent him to another school. One day apparently she went to that school claiming she was sent there from the school to monitor the school. She went directly to the class that the kid was in and monitored it. When the kid told his parents, they went to the principal's office to complain, and the principal said they didn't. Not boinking with another teacher or an alumni's wife in the football stadium. Only caught because the lady accidentally pressed the intercom button on the mic and the sound started blaring around the school. She pulled an entire condom up her arm during social studies class and told us if a guy said he was too big for one to run the other way. This and throwing things at students. Books, desks, pencils. Poor lady was going through a divorce. He beat the she-eyes out of his uncle. One student brought it up in class a few months later and our teacher shut down that conversation real quick. Edit. I forgot. In 5th grade I walked into my parents' bedroom and they were watching TV and I asked why my bus driver was on the news. Turns out he had been touching little girls. We had an assembly for all the kids on bus number sign 5. Because he got really mad at the opposing volleyball coach and left our entire volleyball team and parents chaperones in a city in a different province without a car. He got fired next day. Before I started working this past January, another substitute yelled, \if. He was drunk one morning and accidentally popped a porno tape into the VCR instead of the Civil War documentary. But he didn't. He went to a student's grad party and got drunk with them. Also, holy she-eyes, some of your guys' teachers are nuts. I went to a private school. One day we got a new teacher who it turns out was not an actual teacher but had stolen another teacher's identity. Apparently the man who did this did it to form our class into a band so we could play at a show and beat his former band who had kicked him out. Long story short, he got fired but the class found where he lived and went and played the show anyway. Our parents showed up and got to see us play. It was pretty cool. In high school, our carpentry/woodworking teacher was fired. One morning when we came into his class he took us all out back and opened up his van. Inside was a dead deer that he insisted he was going to turn into beef jerky and sell some other cuts to students. He then asked some students to drag his carcass through the entire woodshop class, which was like 3 regular classrooms combined, mind you, and then hung it on a hook in a closet next to his office. Next day we had a new teacher, and nobody got deer jerky. I think he used a single license for every computer in the back lab, but the way he rubbed the boys' shoulders put everyone on edge for years, so they were just looking for a reason to cut ties. He lives in a mobile home out west and tried to sell me dry rations about 10 years after I had graduated. Dating a student. No. The art teacher slapped my brother. I wasn't. Football coach that was not only letting students with concussions play, he was encouraging it if they were his starters/1 street string. I had a teacher put on probation because he just gave up one day, then climbed out the first floor window and went to his car in the middle of the class. High school chemistry teacher used to be a porn star and everyone found out by watching her video called me. His laptop was connected to the projector and my band director, in his 40s, was exposed on Facebook trying to hook up with his recently graduated students after offering them jobs as marching technicians. Technically nothing illegal, but a disgusting abuse of the role he had in our lives. He was a great teacher, very nice and cracked jokes. I honestly thought of him as somewhat of a mentor. Turned out he was a shameless predator. History teacher got pregnant from her grade 11 student. She was fired, him expelled, and now they're married last I heard. Our art teacher got fired for verbally and sometimes physically abusing kids and for stealing our food. We used to get free bread and milk every day, but in his defense, he probably had some mental issues from a car accident that got his wife and kid killed. First one, teacher was fired for freaking some of the students and send nudes left parenthesis she was 24 and very attractive. Second one, We had biannual drug dogs at our school sniffing lockers and rooms for drugs, and the principal got busted with a ton of coke in his desk. Guess he forgot it was that day. Played in a golf tournament he was also in a few years later, and it was pretty awkward. One of the students followed her into a store cupboard between classes and forced a kiss on her. Didn't matter that he was a rugby player who was built like a house. This was about 2004 and noon. Imagine that kind of situation when they made the rules. She got a criminal conviction and can't teach anymore, either. She brought a gun to school. It was her first year at the school and she was snorting cocaine on her desk during passing period. She locked the door and students looked in the window and videotaped, ending up getting around the whole school, and she was taken out in handcuffs. Teacher got a DUI in front of the school while getting there late at like 10:30 a.m. I remember a teacher of mine 10 years ago got fired for telling a girl suck my dog. I dumb. Murdered his wife by pushing her down some stairs. Married teacher, 40s, female, dating 17-year-old student. Crazy thing was that they barely tried to hide it. She would sign him out of classes for /club. Teacher fricked my friend's sister. She was 15 at the time and he was a 50-year-old veteran. She was all over the news, and you can easily find it if you search my high school and the words /sexual. I have one myself. Back in high school, one of our math teachers was arrested for sexually touching some of the female students. He was my math teacher, and I honestly don't doubt that he did that, as he was one hell of a creepy guy. Tennis coach / teacher slapped a guy on the ass after doing something well in a tennis match. Parents complained and he was fired. He was the most loved teacher in the school. This was back in like 2009. He solicited a minor under the age of 15 online for sex. He pretended to be a 17-year-old boy using a picture of a former high school student. His teacher used to come watch us practice tennis, and he was the girls' basketball coach. He was also terrible at teaching English. There were two. First guy, Mr. T, was kind of a cool teacher. He did his job alright, but he made it a lot of fun. He had a definite wild streak. He hated when the principal, Mr. B, wouldn't leave the room, and one he flipped off Mr. B while he was leaving under the guise of /scratching. Late to the party, but I had a teacher have an affair with another teacher. The male teacher's wife found out, and at the state basketball finals, pushed the female teacher down the bleachers. He OD on coke cut with fentanyl in the second floor boys' restroom. He's alive, but he definitely doesn't have any type of career with schools / student facilities. This was a high school. The principal, told some lesbian parents that their kid was doing poorly because the kid, did not have a father figure. Not being in the USA, that had him fired the next day. He murdered his wife. She was a freaking asshole, so all of the students wrote reports about her. Next school year, nobody had to deal with her bitch ass anymore. Teacher sent out an email to all parents saying that our school will be the next victim of a school bombing, not saying that he will do it, just that it will be bombed. Next day he is wearing a bulletproof vest at school. Every Monday a teacher got to hold their own presentation in front of the school, and the same teacher decided to hold a presentation about recruiting us students to go fight in Israel military. He showed pictures of him fighting there as well. Not me, but an ex-GF, Japanese. One of her teachers, male, was caught in the girls' changing rooms sniffing underwear. He had a daughter at the school too, and it ruined all their lives. The teacher was fired, his wife divorced him, and his daughter had to move to another school because of embarrassment. My history teacher was a very kind old man and one of my favorite teachers. He was getting close to retirement and had about 5 years left. Towards the end he had an angina attack during our class and was sent to hospital for a week later. He came back a month later and announced he would be given an early retirement at the end of the year due to his health getting worse. On his last week he just had fun with all his classes. We were the last class he had on his last day, and he spent the class telling us his life story about growing up in Italy, meeting his wife, and how he nearly missed his interview to be a teacher in our school, which was his first, last and only teaching job. I still see him around sometimes and he's in good health. You're the best, Mr. C. He didn't get fired, he worked in the school on a 1-year contract. After the year he went and worked somewhere else. I imagine he did this a lot, as it was later discovered, as in probably around a decade later, that he was a massive pedophile. high school chemistry teacher failed to pay his rent onto storage units. When they opened them up, they were full of stolen things from the school and students. The French teacher suspiciously kept giving the girls attention. One day asked a particular girl to sit on his lap. There were rumors about him being a pedophile floating around in general. Hello Reddit, I am from Russia. We have subject called labor. We are sawing, we are building and do this kind of stuff every lesson. But that's not the point. Our teacher drinks alcohol and smokes a lot. He often came to school drunk. He always smelled of cigarettes and alcohol. In his classes, we did almost nothing. He just didn't say anything and stared blankly at his laptop. As a result, he was fired. He called out the student body for their racist bullying of minority students, and the administration for turning a blind eye. They decided he was to be. This isn't about her getting fired, but my school has a bad history with Spanish teachers and we went through 4 in 1 year. One of them refused to leave and had to be arrested during school hours. For freaking one of the students. You always were a creep, Coach Miles, but damn. Female student lied about having inappropriate relations with him. He didn't. English teacher sent flowers and creepy FB messages to a sophomore. There was a whole thing in the New York Post about it. They even had some quotes from Facebook statuses. One was he would have 5th grade girls sit on his lap and between his legs and rock them back and forth like a swing. The girls were so naive that they would actually line up to sit on his lap, but one of them was smart enough to tell another teacher, who caught him red-handed, and now he is serving time in prison. Lost exam coursework for a whole class. Sexted underage girls at my school. I was under the grade he was teaching. In my older school, a teacher raped a student. He was fired 2 weeks later. She screenshot and her nudes were up in the Photos app in 4th grade. He threw a chair at a student. He missed, but it left a dent in the metal locker to get bonus points because he was a priest as well as a teacher. My maths teacher ordered a sex toy during class, a dildo, while her laptop was connected to the interactive whiteboard. So the entire class, myself included, saw her doing so. Ooh, I have a story for this. There was a substitute teacher that everyone hated because of how grumpy he was all the time. One day, he was subbing for a teacher whose classroom was directly next to the assistant principal's office, and was particularly irritable that day. The loud /urban /girls that sat in the back were intentionally trying to push him to blow his temper, and he ended up pulling a knife on one of them, and told them /shut. Japanese teacher caught sending texts to student, and a maths teacher sick of people leaning on their chairs pulled one from under a kid. Tough to grifting clash and was eventually grifted out of a job, shooting her lover to death. A teacher had us correct the grammar of the suicide letter written by a school shooter. Yup. More though he really should have been gone, but he wasn't. We had 4 consecutive high school science teachers fired/quit for molesting students. It was always the science teachers for some reason. One was taking up skirt bribes for dress code leniency, one was sleeping with a female student, one was stealing school property, one was having sex in the boys' locker room with his wife who was the other PE teacher, still illegal, and the other had child porn, not of his students, on his school PC. If I remember correctly, there was this new gay teacher that seemed really cool. A group of guys said that he was asking for nudes or to go on dates. It was all from the same group of friends. They were assholes and homophobes, so if it was true. Also, a lot of other students defended the teacher. He got fired for that though. Not teaching, lying left parenthesis about having a family and being a dumb even on some guys. Most of the student body really wants to get fired. In the end he was gotten rid of and the principal explained to us that he /resigned /. He was an older French guy substitute teaching physics because the school had messed up the visas for the teachers from Canada and he was kind of creeping on a 14-year-old girl. As a teacher myself, it